Some westerns bombed so badly it's honestly hard to believe the studios didn't see it coming. I mean, we're talking Clint Eastwood singing, Disney literally burning over $100 million for one battle scene, even an attempt at launching a brand new western star that failed so spectacularly it killed both his career and the studio behind him. Here are 10 big-budget western flop studios spent fortunes on, yet people completely ignored. In 1993, Columbia Pictures thought they had a guaranteed hit with a true story western about Apache leader Geronimo. Wes Studi was cast after his work in hits like Dances with Wolves and The Last of the Mohicans, but then the release got sabotaged by a shady TV movie about Geronimo airing on TNT literally 5 days before Hill's movie hit theaters. Hill himself put it best. I don't think there are a hell of a lot of movies where you can take basically the same story, show it to 50 million people, then bring yours out a week later and think you're gonna do great. What am I gonna say, my Geronimo has better locations? The film bombed badly after that. But Quentin Tarantino defended it later, saying America just wasn't worthy of it. Everybody talked about how boring it was. But I thought Walter Hill made a really great classic western, and America just wasn't worthy of the privilege. Disney poured over $100 million into this epic story about American cowboy Frank Hopkins, played by Viggo Mortensen and his Mustang competing in a deadly Arabian desert horse race. Hopkins had claimed in his memoir that he won this legendary race, but researchers later proved it was all made up. Didn't matter, Disney bet huge on this anyway. But then they kept delaying it. First, they pushed it from summer 2003 to avoid another horse movie, Seabiscuit. Then from October to March 2004, opening directly against Starsky and Hutch. Audiences didn't care. Critics shrugged. Nice scenery. Way too cheesy. Mortensen later bought one of the horses from the movie, but Disney just lost about $60 million, kicking off a year filled with period piece flops like the Alamo and Around the World in 80 days. That one was a bad year for Disney. Long before Johnny Depp's version of the Lone Ranger nearly bankrupted Disney, there was another big-screen Lone Ranger in 1981. Producers spent 8 months casting Lone Ranger, eventually settling on a totally unknown actor. The star, Clinton Spilsbury, was picked because producers hoped for another Christopher Reeve situation. Unknown actor becomes overnight sensation. But it didn't happen. Spilsbury caused endless trouble on set. Fights, drinking, demanded weird script changes. His behavior became tabloid fodder and the movie flopped terribly, making only $12 million against its $18 million budget. Spilsbury never acted again after this. The failure was so severe that ITC, the studio behind it, got bailed out by American investors who bought up the remaining stock and merged it into a new company called TriStar Pictures. So yeah, one flop killed both a rising star's career and an entire studio. Producer Walter Koblenz later admitted the problem. Looking back, we were trying to please everyone from 6 to 60. Too violent for little kids, not sophisticated enough for adults. Maybe we were too intent on staying true to the Lone Ranger story. In the mid-60s, United Artists and Cinerama thought audiences wanted a sprawling epic comedy western about whiskey shipments, temperance activists, and Burt Lancaster leading an ensemble cast. Director John Sturges went way over budget, from an initial $5 million to $7 million. That's around $71 million today. Film made only about $4 million, a total disaster. The thing ran over 2.5 hours and audiences just weren't having it. United Artists took a big hit, and Cinerama's plans for more big-budget road shows pretty much ended right there. Critics later said it was the bonanza that wasn't, and Burt Lancaster, a big star usually, got one of his rare, huge career flops. Adjusted for inflation, that's a loss of around $30 million today. In 1994, Warner Brothers made a big-budget biopic about Wyatt Earp starring Kevin Costner. Problem was, another Earp movie, Tombstone, came out just 6 months earlier with Kurt Russell. Tombstone was flashier, shorter, and people loved it. Wyatt Earp was 3 hours long, slow-paced, and critics kept saying how boring it felt compared to Tombstone. It ended up a $40 million flop. Warner Brothers chairman Robert Daly straight up admitted it. The film caught the studio in a bind. People felt they'd already seen it, just a faster, better version. It seriously hurt Kevin Costner's reputation as a bankable star, especially after the huge success of Dances with Wolves. Just a few years later, he had another legendary flop with The Postman, and it was clear audiences weren't interested in big, serious westerns anymore. Even Dennis Quaid later said about the film, "I personally thought it was too long, but I'm also really proud of it." This was Ron Howard's attempt at making a serious, gritty western. He actually started off trying to direct another movie called The Alamo, but had a huge budget fight with Disney and walked out. He ended up at Revolution Studios, who probably regretted it later. They gave him $65 million, which is pretty crazy money for a western, especially since they usually bomb overseas and barely break even domestically. The story's set in 1885 New Mexico. Cate Blanchett plays Maggie, whose oldest daughter gets kidnapped, forcing her to turn to her estranged father, played by Tommy Lee Jones, for help tracking down the kidnappers. They tried really hard on the authenticity. Some of the cast learned the Apache language just for this movie, but people just didn't care. It earned barely half its budget back, despite 3 Oscar-winning actors involved. Chicago Tribune even called it the best and toughest western since Unforgiven, but nobody bought a ticket anyway. Speaking of The Alamo, this is the movie Ron Howard left, and it bombed even worse than The Missing. Disney poured in over $100 million, built a gigantic set that covered 51 acres, the biggest, most expensive set ever built in North America at that point. They spent 7 months shooting this thing. The actual Alamo battle took less than 20 minutes back in 1836, but filming just that one sequence took them over a month. To be fair, they did go hard on historical accuracy. Actors looked pretty close in age to their real-life characters. Uniforms, weapons, even the timing of the battle was spot on. But people didn't want accuracy. They wanted the myth. It also had the misfortune of opening right when The Passion of the Christ was dominating theaters. Total disaster at the box office. Barely made a quarter of its budget back. Even now it ranks among the biggest box office flops ever made. This wasn't even the first time someone tried to film The Alamo and failed. Back in 1960, John Wayne himself took on the story as his personal passion project. Wayne didn't just star in it as Davy Crockett. He directed, produced, and even put up his own money. Originally budgeted at around $10 million, Wayne went way overboard and ended up spending about $12 million, around $130 million in today's money blockbuster-level budget. It wasn't a total flop. It actually did decent business. Problem was, with all the distribution fees and profit shares, it ended up around $5 million short of breaking even. Wayne's own company, Batjack, took the losses, and Wayne himself never made a dime from it. He even mortgaged his own property and had to hustle into quick movies like North to Alaska just to pay off his debts from the Alamo. It probably also scared United Artists away from ever financing Wayne's big, ambitious dream projects again. Texas Rangers was in development for years. Originally, it was even going to be directed by legendary Western director Sam Peckinpah. Didn't happen. Instead, Miramax ended up backing it in the late 90s, aiming for this weird, teen-friendly Western starring James Van Der Beek from Dawson's Creek and even Usher. Miramax sat on it, delayed it repeatedly, and finally dumped it quietly into theaters at the end of 2001. The movie made just over $600,000 domestically. Basically one of the worst wide releases ever. Miramax had to eat the entire $38 million budget. The whole disaster caused major problems between Miramax and their parent company, Disney. Michael Eisner, Disney CEO at the time, was furious about money losses like this. Even the original writer John Milius and Aaron Kruger, who later rewrote it, took their names off the movie completely. They wanted no part of it. This might be the weirdest thing Clint Eastwood ever did in his whole career. You've got Clint Eastwood and Lee Marvin, 2 absolute legends of tough guy Western movies, but get this, it's actually a full-blown musical. A musical Western. And yes, Eastwood and Marvin do their own singing. If you're curious what Clint sounds like singing, here's your movie. Director Joshua Logan got way too ambitious after seeing the success of The Sound of Music. He insisted on building a huge, full-scale mining town set in Oregon's Blue Mountains. 7 months of construction instantly doubled the original budget, and obviously it didn't come close to earning back what it cost. Years later, Clint joked about it, saying, "I was crazy enough to try anything. My father was a singer, so I figured I knew something about music. But whatever I was doing in that movie, trust me, it wasn't singing.